All right, welcome back. Florida Football Insiders podcast presented by Beef O'Brady's. Remember, Beef O'Brady's here in Tampa on the corner of Bush Boulevard and Himes Avenue. Check out Beefs. You got national championship Monday night coming up, NFL playoffs right around the corner. So, Beefs for all your catering needs and your sports viewing pleasures. Welcoming in Kevin Brockway. He's been with us several times. He's from the Gainesville Sun, covers the Gators. We're going to talk a little recruiting, signing class, transfer portal. We're just going to get a little update on the Gators and such. So welcome back, Kevin. Happy New Year.
It's Happy New Year. It's good to be back as usual, and good to be back in Florida.
Yeah. I know you were up in New York enjoying a little holiday festivities. How was New York for those who've never been during the holidays? Give us a sense of New York City and that area during the holidays.
Well, it's the Rockefeller Center. It's always fun. The tree, it's a very festive atmosphere there in the city. Christmas in the city is certainly exciting, but I think Christmas weekend it was bitterly cold. It was down to like 0 degrees. I know it's cold here in Florida too, right?
Yeah.
And then warmed up a little bit a couple of days afterwards. I was able to venture down the city and do that kind of stuff. But just good to be home with family. It's where I grew up, and still have a lot of ties up there.
And most importantly, you didn't get stuck in an airport with all the travel issues, did you?
No, I didn't go Southwest. I went Delta, so I was very fortunate, and that worked out. That worked out pretty well for me.
Very good. All right. So we're recording this on Tuesday morning, obviously with the events on Monday Night Football with Damar Hamlin. Kevin, have you ever been in a situation at an event where a player has collapsed in any kind of manner like happened last night at all?
I have not, but I do know, a couple of years ago, I obviously watched that Florida State game when Keontae Johnson collapsed in Tallahassee, and it was eerily similar in a lot of ways. And it's amazing to think 2 years ago that they actually resumed playing in that game.
Yeah.
When you look at what happened last night and them canceling a Monday Night Football game with Keontae's situation, obviously, and he was in critical condition for 7 or 8 days in a hospital up in Tallahassee. Right. Thankfully he made a full recovery and he's playing basketball again, not at Florida, but at Kansas State.
Yep.
Obviously, I don't think Florida would medically clear him. Kansas State did. I mean, that's another issue. But he's doing okay, and he's playing well and he's following his dream. And it will be interesting to see if Hamlin makes a full, recovery if he decides to play football again. And if he does, certainly there'll be a lot of factors that go into it. But definitely a scary scene last night. I was watching it live. Nothing that you want to see on TV. When you have an ambulance rush out to the field, and you could just see how distraught the players were,
right.
Emotionally, and how hard it would be to get, especially in a sport like football, to get charged back up for a game. I think they eventually did the right thing. Maybe they should have done it a little sooner.
No, you and I are old enough to remember Hank Gathers. That to me,
Yes.
That was what came into when I first saw all the distress on the field. That was my first thought was Hank Gathers back in 1990 at Loyola Marymount. Little different situation because we knew he had already had some kind of issue prior to that, but still to see a guy just collapse on the court like that, and obviously in the Hank Gathers situation, he did pass away. That was my first thought was Hank Gathers, 1990.
Yeah, no question. And I do remember that too. And I remember, obviously the warning signs beforehand and everything. And it was obviously a terrible situation for everyone involved. And then, of course, Bo Kimball with the tribute, shooting
Right.
with the left hand and everything. And it was really a sad story. But that team came together and made a run to the Elite Eight in Hank's memory.
Absolutely. No, that was a tremendous year. And like I said, Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball, man, were just, and again, if you didn't never know who Hank Gathers was, look him up. All-American, led the country the year he passed away, led the country in scoring and rebounding at Loyola Marymount.
Kid was a beast. And there's a great 30 for 30 on Loyola Marymount that if you can unearth, I would definitely recommend watching.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to the Gators here. Let's do a quick review of the bowl game situation. The Gators losing the Las Vegas Bowl 30-3. Not a very good result, obviously, for the Gators. To me, the interesting thing was the Gators kick a late field goal late in this game to extend a little-known streak of never being shut out. Tell us about the streak and the extension of the streak there. Was there any backlash for that? If you're doing that?
They lead FBS. I think it's 435 or 436 straight. It goes back to 1988. Auburn in 1988. So if you think about that, that's, 30, we're going on what, 34, 35
years.
years
Yeah.
without being shut out. And I mean, really spanned through the Spurrier and so forth and everything. I remember was it a couple of years ago they played FSU and they got a safety, I think, under Jim McElwain to extend the streak, which was just kind of crazy if you think about it. They didn't score an offensive point, but it was still not the shutout streak. So I mean, it's been close a few times, and certainly it was there. And it's interesting because Adam Mahalik missed a long field goal early in that game, and then they were kind of near inside 10, and they got pushed back. They got a couple of negative plays, a sack, and everything. So I asked Napier after the game. I said, "Well, if it was a little closer, would you have gone for the touchdown?" And he said, "Yeah, exactly right." He goes, 4th and 24, 4th and goal from the 24. What are the odds? You bring Mahalik out there and you kick it. I think it would have been interesting to see if he would have played it differently if he was inside the 10-yard line. But there was some backlash. I know Kirk Herbstreit said something on the air. He called it embarrassing. And I think I saw an Oregon State fan on Twitter saying that it's kind of like a baseball coach calling for a bunt to break up a no-hitter.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and being that it was Napier's first year, I wonder if at the moment of all that was going on, if he even knew, or if somebody had to come up and tell him, "Hey, Billy, this is an important streak here. We need to kick a field goal here late in the game." I wonder if that was even mentioned to him by somebody on the sideline.
Well, I don't know. It's pretty prominent in the media notes too. So I don't know if he reviews the media notes or all. So he might, if he reviews it every week, I'm sure he's aware of it. But it was. Like you said, one of those situations where it was dangerously close, and I was tweeting about it during the game, and it was interesting because it looked really dire there with Jack Miller at quarterback, and obviously they were tremendously shorthanded, and I think it just shows a lot of fans really were on Anthony Richardson for much of the season. He was inconsistent up and down, but be careful what you wish for. People were talking about benching him for Jack Miller and Jalen Kitna, and you kind of saw how the offense functioned without Anthony Richardson. It didn't look good at all.
All right, before we talk signing day and transfer portal, just give the audience a sense of, after year one of Billy Napier, what is the sense in Gainesville and kind of Central Florida about where they think things are going? Obviously, it wasn't record-wise, it wasn't fantastic, but they had some moments where they played really well, and they beat Utah early in the year. So just give the audience a sense of what the Gator Nation thinks post year one, Billy Napier.
Yeah, I just think a lot of inconsistency because they beat Utah and they beat South Carolina too, who turned around and beat Clemson,
right,
and back to back Tennessee and Clemson. So I mean that just tells you that when Florida was at its best, it could play with anyone. I think the problem was they just weren't at their best all the time, and you got to wonder if that's coaching, if that's just lack of depth or key injuries throughout the course of the season. I think the fans are, they want to give Napier a chance. It's going to be an interesting year too to see what kind of progress they make, how they address the quarterback position. I mean, they've picked up obviously Graham Mertz from Wisconsin and have one of the top quarterback recruits coming in Jaden Rashada. But I think that it's going to be another season where you're going to have to build depth, and you're going to have to show a lot of improvement defensively too, because that's what really let the Gators down during the course of the season, giving up 40 or more points to 4 different opponents during the season.
I mean, there have been a lot of transfer guys coming out of Florida, leaving Florida. Is that by design, or is that just, is that kind of Billy's way of weeding out the roster a little bit, or just give us a sense of, because there's a lot of names you've heard entered the portal coming out of Gainesville.
I think there were a few guys they wanted to come back, but the majority of them were just kind of like, hey, look, we wish you well, but you don't fit into our plans. And I think when Billy Napier came into Florida, he just kind of thought, I'll give some of the players I inherited a chance, see what they're like, evaluate them. But you kind of saw during the course of the season, Napier went prominently with his guys, Montrell Johnson, the running back, Trevor Etienne, the true freshman, Shamar James.
Right.
A lot of guys that he recruited played prominent roles. Osiris Torrance, obviously was an impact player and arguably probably their best player, most talented player during the course of the season. So, and you're going to be losing some of those guys too, especially, a lot of people are talking about Anthony Richardson, but I believe the Osiris Torrance loss is going to be a big blow to the offensive line, and they're going to need to address that, certainly in the portal and developing some guys too.
Give us a sense of, from a signing. Obviously, we've had the early signing day. What was the emphasis for the Gators? Was it offensive and defensive linemen, or was it skill players? Obviously, probably a little both, but it was there a major focus that Billy has broadcasted to the media up there that he really wanted to really focus on?
Well, judging from it, front seven and wide receiver, they got a lot. And that was an area they need to address, because you kind of saw the depth at wide receiver when Justin Shorter got hurt, when Xavier Henderson got hurt at the end of the season. You remember that Florida State game? They only had about 4 or 5 scholarship wide receivers. It appears that Ricky Pearsall is coming back. It's not 100%. He didn't totally commit after the Vegas game. So he's a piece. I think you need some guys around him. And it's going to be interesting, because I am going to go to the Under Armour game tonight down in Orlando. Get a chance to look at some guys like Aiden Mizell and Andy Jean. And they've got some wide receivers coming in that have a lot of talent, but true freshmen, you just don't know if you can rely on these guys right away.
And then obviously the biggest question, for every team in the country, quarterback. Obviously they bring in Graham Mertz, who's a polarizing name. If you follow college football at Wisconsin, they've got the big recruit coming in, Rashada. Give us a little sense of Rashada, what his background is, and just people that don't know who he is.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing him play tonight. I mean, Pittsburgh, California guy, obviously, flipped from Florida, Miami, back to Florida. So there was a little bit of drama in his recruitment, but he appears to be, he signed in the early signing period. So he appears to be, signed, sealed, and delivered to Florida, and he'll enroll early, kind of get a jump on the competition. Dual threat guy. I think he'll fit Napier's system well, the read option well, because he can, do some things with his legs. But they're very excited about him, and some of the intangibles too. I mean, he led his team deep into the California State playoffs, so he's got some winning intangibles as well. And I'll be curious to see a little more of him, like I said, again tonight, and throughout the course of the season. But when you watch the clips and you watch the film, you definitely see a live arm there.
Is he more of a runner? Is he more of a pocket pass? Is he a dual guy, or is he more of a thrower?
He's a dual guy. No, he'll create some plays with his legs. I mean, he was the I think 3rd or 4th rated dual threat quarterback in the nation in the class of 2022. So he'll definitely fit Napier's system that way.
All right, last thing I'll get you at here. Obviously, college football national championship next Monday night, Georgia and TCU. You saw Georgia in person in Jacksonville for the cocktail party. How surprised were you that Georgia got pushed so much by Ohio State as far as the way they moved the ball with relative ease? And do you think Georgia will be able to recover and stabilize versus TCU?
Yeah, I was surprised that the defense surrendered as many points as they did. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., man, he was having a field day. You're talking about a guy that's going to be playing on Sundays. And then obviously he gets knocked out of the game late in the 3rd quarter. That was a big, certainly blow to Ohio State. Ryan Day called a heck of a game. But I was surprised that, Georgia's defense did not answer the bell as well as maybe they could have. But, they did lose a lot from that defense last year. That was pretty dominant too. So, I mean, TCU, Max Duggan is going to be no picnic. They showed that they showed Michigan that they're legit and they're for real. So I would expect another close game, but I think Georgia will find a way to pull it out, and the SEC usually does, right? And they'll be champions again back to back, and it'll be another year where Kirby is ruling the roost, and everybody else will be waiting for playing for second place.
Well, Kevin, great job. I appreciate the time. Again, we'll definitely check in as we get more towards March Madness. If the Gators are making a move here, any excitement on the basketball court moving forward in conference season?
Yeah, no, it's been a really rough first year for Todd Golden, 7-6, 0-6 against quad 1 teams.
Right.
So haven't had that breakthrough win yet. They get Texas A&M and Georgia this week. They got to get righted. They're having some issues with rebounding. They're having some issues as far as right now shooting. They're in a pretty bad slump the last 2 games, 5 for 41 from 3, but they do shoot better at the O'Connell Center. So they'll be back home, and you got to hope that if you're a Gator fan, that things turn around a little bit and they figure some things out, because if they get into a hole here, they were very competitive against Georgia, against Auburn, top 25 team,
right.
Played very well defensively. So that's something to build upon. The fact that they went out and they made a tight game, had a chance to win in the closing seconds, and Colin Castleton your best player dribbles the ball off your foot. It's just one of those tough breaks.
Well, keep up the great work with Gainesville Sun. Tell everybody where they can find all your great content online.
Yeah, Gatorsports.com, or you can follow me at Twitter at Kevin Brockway G1. That's where I link a lot of my work. So,
well, appreciate the time, Kevin. Happy New Year. Glad you got to enjoy a little New York City, and we'll talk soon.
All right, thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Have a great day. We'll be back in just a minute.